So it's really important you take notes because you will not remember this if you don't write it down, right? If I ask you to say, if I said find, okay, find 28% of, say, I don't know, 40. Okay? Find 28% of 40. All right, you do exactly what it says. All of these, if you write down exactly from left to right, if you transfer it from sentence to formula, it always works with percents. Always, always, always. And that's true in all of the ones that we're going to do today. So it went, how could I write 28% as a decimal? Does everybody know that process? Is anybody confusing? So let's just talk about that briefly for a second. If you have like 28% and I want to turn that into a decimal, right now the decimal is here, right? And to turn it from percent to decimal, all I have to do is move it to the left 2 spaces, right? And put the dot there. So 28% is the same as 0.28, right?
Yeah.
So what about 14%? What would that be? 0.14. What about 8%? Think about it.
0.08.
Yeah, I've got to throw a 0 there, right? 0.08, right? That's really important. That's typically the kind of mistake people make. If I say 8%, they write 80, right? Or 0.8, which is 80%, right? So, okay, so I'm going to say, it said, what does of always mean in math?
Equals.
No, that's is. Is, was, will be is equals, right? What's of?
Is.
No. What, say?
Multiply.
Multiply.
Oh.
Whenever you see the word of always means multiply, okay? Always. So that makes this really easy. If I turn this into a decimal, I've got, so find this. So it's 28.28 times 40. That's all it's asking, right? And that's pretty easy. I could either use a calculator, and I'm okay with using a calculator on these at this point.
11.2.
Okay, so 0.28 times 40, since it's on the, yeah, right. Okay, so if I do it, it's 11.2. So find 28% of 40, 11.2. And then I ask myself, does this make sense? 28% of 40, that's way less than half. That's almost like a quarter of 40, right? So a quarter of 40, like if I divided 40 by 4, that would be 10. And this is a little higher than a quarter, so that makes sense. Makes sense, right? You see what I'm saying? I'm just using my brain to make sure the answer seems right. Because if I got 11,422, I might realize, logically it doesn't make sense. Because 28% of 40 has got to be less than 40. It can't be more than 40, right? Okay, how about this one? I'm just going to do one of each type that you're going to see.
I'm sharing.
Yeah.
There's also a way to do it on paper rather than with a calculator, and what you do is you just multiply 0.28 times 40 itself, and then you act as if you just remember that 0.28 has the decimal 2 places in front of it, and then you just multiply 28 times 40, and then you get your answer, and then you just move it twice to the left.
Right, and you can just move it to that way. Right. Okay, how about if I gave you this? 32 is, I don't know, let's say 80% of what number? Okay, again, you write exactly, you go left to right, and you write exactly what you see.
Okay,
Right?
so 32.
32.
Point 32.
What is? Is equals, right?
And then
32 is
0.8.
equals, how do I write that?
0.8
0.8 of times
x.
what number? We're gonna make what number x? So 0.8 times x, which is 0.8x, right?
Can I
Right.
put in parentheses?
I can if I want, but I don't, since it's an x, I don't need to, but I can, it's fine, makes no difference. Now, what would I do now? I wanna know what x is. Henry,
But
question? Does that, do you guys all see how I did that? 32 is equals 0.8 of times, and some people did it like that, that's fine. What number
I
x?
don't know what to do with x as a decimal.
Okay, well, x is, do we know? Well, let's divide by what?
0.8.
0.8, right?
Right.
We're dividing by 0.8. So then 32, oh, I have it in my hand. 32 divided by 0.8, 0.8 is equal to 40. So x is equal to 40. So 32 is 80% of 40. That's what we're saying. Does that make sense? 100% of 40 would be 40. 80% is going to be like 30, or, you know, yeah, that's about right. Look, 32. So we're in the right ballpark. I'm just using logic to make sure I'm always in the right ballpark. Okay, 3. 3. What percent of 60 is 28? Okay? So what percent? There's two ways to do this. What does percent mean? Do you guys know what that means?
yeah, something.
It means over something. Like if I said
So over
2%,
100.
it would be 2 over 100,
So is it x over 100?
right? So I could do, this is x, and this is 100, over 100, right? So I could do this. This is way 1. Way 1, okay? And I could do this. I could do x over 100. What percent? What percent? Does that make sense? Okay, of means times 60. 60 always, 60 over 1 is equals 28. All right, now when I solve this, I will find x equals something, and that is the answer. That is the percent. I just have to put percent sign after it, right? I think this is the harder way to do it. I like the way 2 myself, and I'm going to show you that in a second. But if I were going to do this, okay, I know 20 goes into both of these. Is there something bigger? I don't know. 20 goes into this 3 times, right? 20 goes into this 5 times. That looks right. So 3x over 5. So we've got 3x over 5. So we have 3/5 x, right, equals 28. And then I would just multiply both sides times the,
Yeah, times 5.
okay, yeah, we'll just do it times 5, times 5. That's fine. So then those cross out times 5. So I have 3x is equal to 28 times 5, 28 times 5 is equal to 140. 140 divided by 3, x is equal to, divide by 3, x is equal to 46.66, right? And goes on forever, right? So, does that make sense? What percent of 60 is 28? 28 is almost half of 60, right? So that would have to be a little less than half. 46% makes sense. Good. All right. Now, this is the way 2 that I prefer to do it. It's just you have to realize what you're doing when you do way 2. All right. So you guys all taking notes? Henry, you taking notes? Really important. You're not going to memorize this stuff. Promise. Okay. Way 2. Okay. What percent of 60? Instead of doing x over 100, I just do x.
Why?
What? Think about it. I'm going to do it. Well, let me just show you. What percent? I'm going to just make that whole thing x. So I say x of 60, meaning x times 60, which is just 60x, right? is equals 28. You with me? Am I still in here? I am, okay. So suddenly that looks a lot easier than this to me, don't you
Yeah,
think?
it does.
See what I mean? And so the only thing is, when you solve for x, your answer will be a decimal. Okay? It will not be, when you solve for x here, that is your answer. So I would have to say percent, I forgot to do that. Put percent afterwards. But when I solve for this, if I divide both sides by 60, this is what I get. I will get x is equal to 0.4666.
Then
And
you have to
what
go
I have
to-
to do is then
yeah.
convert it to a percent, because this is a decimal. But that's really easy, I just move it over 2 places, so it's 46.66%. Does that make sense? It's a decimal, it's not a percent. So I then have to turn it into a percent. But to me, that's a much easier thing to solve than that one. So I prefer this method, but it's, however you want to do it is fine. Does that make sense? Do you understand the difference?
Are those the only things that we need now?
And I think that may be it. Wait a minute, I said that. I think that's all you need. And then there's a couple word problems to just sort of make you have to just figure out what it's, how to set it up, right? It's gonna be one of these methods that will make it work, right? So that's it. So that's it on the lecture for today. And then tomorrow we're gonna talk about percent changes.